and where things are going. Tom?
Mike, the situation best on the streets is a combination of curiosity and chaos. People are bicycling up to Tiananmen Square for a look, throw a few rocks, or engage the army any way they can. And in the last couple of times they've tried it, they were engaged definitely by the military. I happened to be standing on a ledge when the army opened up for about 30 seconds. I did see an ambulance come up and pick at least 2 people up off the ground, throw them in the ambulance. As we were leaving the area where we were for our safety, there was we were going in a rickshaw, and we saw at least 2 more ambulances heading toward the scene. Also, there is sporadic gunfire on other streets rather than the main drag, so the gunfire is occurring in several areas of town. We also saw people traveling out of their homes and out of their neighborhoods with their suitcases packed and sitting on top of them in a cart. They evidently are trying to leave Beijing, looking for a safer place. There may not be a safer place right now, but at least they know they don't want to stay where they are. But again, the curiosity, the people who are pedaling their bicycles in, there is hardly any motor vehicle traffic in the area at all. The buses are still burning, but no one is driving around. There are Americans in hotels are staying there. They say they were told by the hotels to stay inside for their own safety, and even if they did go outside, there are no taxis to be had to go anywhere. And if they did go anywhere, most of the shops we saw were closed. They had signs up saying closed until further notice. So there is not that much activity of the official variety going on in Beijing, but there are barricades that have been put up by citizens in Beijing that attack Lipong for firing and shedding the blood of Chinese civilians here in this town. So there is still an outpouring of aggression on both sides, but it is words on the side of the protesters, and it is bullets on the side of the army. Now, Tiananmen Square held the students for many hours into the wee hours of the morning here, despite the fact that armored personnel carriers moved in against them and that troops double-timed into the square with their weapons blazing. One of those who was inside Tiananmen Square until almost the last minute was CNN cameraperson Cindy Strand. Cindy now joins us from here in Beijing.
Yes, hello. At about 4 a.m., they turned all the lights out in Tiananmen Square, and the students started singing the International Now. It was very eerie as civilians started drifting into the square singing along with the students. And the students were burning their tents to light up the square. At that point, soldiers started pouring out of the Great Hall of the People. We fell back, and at this point, the armored personnel carriers just rumbled into Tiananmen Square itself. Soldiers started up the monument where the students were sitting. And students we interviewed later that had fled from the area said that the soldiers had attacked them with lead pipes, and in the chaos, many of the students were trampled. The students were very angry and very saddened at what had taken place.
Cindy, Rick Moore in Atlanta, can you hear me? Hi, Cindy?
Yes, Rick.
Okay, I was wondering, you were describing what happened from 4 a.m. on. We had reports earlier that some of the leaders of the students there in the square approached officers of the Army and said that they would voluntarily leave at 7 a.m., but then the soldiers came in and started shooting before this little deadline they had requested to vacate the square.
Yes, the students were broadcasting an announcement which said that they were ready to leave the square if they could talk to the PLA, the People's Liberation Army. The students we talked to later, after they had fled the square, said they were all sitting very peacefully on the monument. They had dropped their sticks and any homemade weapons they could have come up with out there, and they said they were sitting peacefully, and the soldiers moved in anyway.
Were the students taking any toll on the soldiers at all, or was it as one way as it appears to be, with the soldiers with their automatic rifles and the students with apparently sticks and stones?
The students we talked to at this point were very shaken, and they indicated to us it was very chaotic, and all they did was fled, and like I said, it was very chaotic, and many of the students said that their fellow colleagues were trampled in the chaos.
All right, Cindy, do you know what the situation is in the square now? Can you describe the scene for us? How many numbers of students are still possibly in the area, other demonstrators, soldiers?
Right now there are no students in the square and about 50 tanks. The area is cordoned off by the tanks and soldiers. And as Mike Chenoy said earlier, citizens are throwing rocks at the soldiers, and there's sporadic gunfire. You can hear the sound of sirens throughout the city. On the way out of the area, we passed 16 trucks with soldiers, meeting no resistance, moving into the city.
Okay, do we still have Mike Chenoy and Tom Intier on the line with us? Mike or Tom? Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah, this is Tom Intier.
Okay.
Rick, I can hear you. I heard you ask about the situation in the square. I counted about 65 battle tanks, a dozen of them stretched across the road, and maybe 40 more back about a couple hundred yards, and thousands and thousands of troops are massed and standing there. They've been standing there for hours across the highway. They have not moved. The only troops that have moved were troops that were in Tiananmen Square, and they seem to either head back on a side street or they moved into the Forbidden City. So there has been some movement.
Tom, what's your best guess, you and Mike? Where is this leading? How long can this go on? We have a city there of 10 million people, most of whom were in agreement with the demonstration, the demands of the students. We have, hundreds of thousands of soldiers in the area. It looks like this could go on for quite some time. What's your best guess?
Well, no one knows right now how long it's going to go, but it seems that the fervor of the citizens of Beijing and the students remains very high. To be willing to walk up to a barricade and start throwing rocks and bottles at armed troops when you know that they have little apprehension about pulling the trigger and firing back takes a lot of nerve. And these people seem willing to do it. When the tanks were rolling by, going in to occupy the square, they followed behind them, trying to throw Molotov cocktails at them. As word spreads through this city about what has happened, it will ignite probably a lot of strong feelings. And the word is traveling very, very quickly in Beijing, and it could move to other cities as well. But the feelings here are going to be rocked for an extremely long time. What has transpired here in the last 12 hours will be written about in the history books for a long time. Now, the last chapter, of course, hasn't been written yet, and it's going to take some time for that to happen.
All right, thanks, Tom.
One's being brought from the area by the Forbidden City in the north of Tiananmen Square, being brought into the Students' Red Cross station, which was erected in the middle of the square. I cannot say enough about the bravery and courage of the students. They just confronted the troops straight on, threw rocks and stones against the live ammunition, and at one point even tried to block an advancing column of about 30 or more troop carriers with a public bus. That effort failed. The bus was fired on, and the driver was dragged out and beaten. At least that's what we could see. Other than that, the crew I was with
off by protesters, and that the authorities themselves have reportedly blocked access to Shanghai's famous riverfront bund, the area that stretches along the Huangpu River along the famous Shanghai skyline. In Beijing, we still don't know exactly how many people were killed. Estimates are now approaching 500. It could be many more. Eyewitnesses who were out around the city during the course of this 12-hour-long assault by the Chinese army or elements of it on Tiananmen Square have provided some disturbing details of the way in which this operation was carried out. Apparently, these reports say the army, when it moved into Tiananmen Square as it moved